Worldwide, there are over 60 million people displaced from their homes. This is due to war, political oppression, and outright banishment. Here to talk about refugees under most of our radars are Leela Dhakal and Regina McClinton. Leela is president of the Bhutanese Association of Michigan, and Regina is professor of intercultural studies at Grand Valley State University. Leela, Regina, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Leela, I want to start with you. Your family came here from Bhutan as refugees. Tell us about your family story.
Yes, my family were businessmen in Bhutan. They had a grocery store. They had 50 to 60 acres of land property. They have betel nuts planting all over. So they were kind of rich. They had 3 different houses. Then all of a sudden, the ethnicity cleansing makes them problem. They burned down the store, a grocery store.
Who's they?
There were 2 ethnicities, Drukpas and Nepali. So Drukpas were the majority out there. So Drukpas, we don't know who did that, but all of a sudden the store burned down. Then had a threaten saying that you need to leave the country, otherwise the military would be in your home from tomorrow. So that's only the threat. It was not the particular person or the government or anything else. It's just the threat from somewhere with the arrow on it. So from next day, we had 40-50 cattle in the house, farmhouse. So next day, my parents were okay. We need to see the CEO of the particular company. They were working for refugee. They are working for the different criteria, categorize people. There were 4 categories of people. So we were in the first. First is the first were the people who can stay actually in the country. It wasn't threatened to leave the country, but all of a sudden we got the warning. My parents got that warning, so they had to leave the country. They tried to request government that we are the first in the first categories people. We are not leaving the country. So what are the consequences for that? But I think I was only 9 years old. I think they did not go anywhere else from there. So what they had to do is they had to make every arrangement. Then the next day, military came over to the house. They started saying, okay, are you leaving or you are still here? How long you're gonna take to leave the country? Then
so this is a real threat because these are people with guns and serious faces.
Yes, yes. So then from next day, we had to hide, like girls had to hide in different places. And the boys had to hide also because they put boys into the jail and they raped the girls. So that were the threat. Then we were, my parents were so nervous. We didn't know anything about it. We were just saying, okay, I saw my dad sleep in the like land. He went to the different places in the land and sleep actually on the ground at night time when the night comes because he was afraid of taking by the military to the jail.
Staying away from the house.
Staying away from the house. Everybody was staying away from the house except my grandma. My grandma was probably 80 or 90 years old. Then that was the situation, but I had to leave the country according to my parents with my uncle. So I left the country before my parents, like 2 years before my parents. I came to Nepal in my uncle's house to be safe, probably. So kids had to leave earlier, so parents can make arrangement for some expenses, probably. So I left the country. Then I totally out of the touch from my parents. I was in Nepal.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 9 years old.
Oh my.
then I was completely out of touch. I was with my uncle and aunts, and they were farmers in Nepal, and I helped them. I worked so hard. I used to go I used to go take care of cattle, things like that. Then I get to go to school.
So from 9 until age 11, you didn't see your parents?
No, I didn't see my parents. Then I actually witnesses 40,000 people in the lining in the riverbank of Nepal. 30 people died every day with hunger, disease, some unfamiliar environment over there, danger of unfamiliar environment over there. So I actually witnessed them dying every day with suicide because they couldn't take it that anymore.
Sure. And for a child that age, that I think is particularly frightening. I want to ask Regina about the history. What is the context of this? Because Nepalis, they're ethnic Nepalis living in Bhutan. Can you talk about
That's
that?
right. So originally the Nepalis were invited into Bhutan,
A neighboring country.
and became workers. Guest workers is kind of a common concept in many countries. And so they were very vital to the economy of Bhutan, increasing, improving. So now you have these wonderful economic situations, and so relatives and other Nepalis came over to participate, have jobs, and prove their own economic stance. And before sort of Bhutan realized it, about half the population were people of Nepali descent. And Nepali people are Hindu, and most of Bhutan is Buddhist. So you had some clashes around nationality and religion. So Bhutan did this sort of, we're going to take our country back, as if it didn't belong to them, but that's what they did.
Even though these ethnic Nepalis, some of them had been there for generations,
Right.
over 100 years.
Correct. So the requirements for citizenship changed, and suddenly people lost citizenship.
Oh my.
Others were not granted citizenship. And, sort of act by act, if you will, hostility by hostility, and the kind of then attacks that Leela's been describing, increase and increase. And so you create this force that pushes people out. So they are ethnically Nepali, neighboring country, start heading to Nepal. And Nepal said no, it would not accept them back as citizens. So you had this contingent, hundreds of thousands really, of people who were displaced. And
no longer welcome in their new country of settlement, and not welcome back in their country of origin 1 or 5 generations ago.
Correct, right. And we've seen this with Syrian refugees, with the Lost Boys of Sudan who went to other countries, and we see it prevalent in societies today. So you can stay in that region in a camp or settlement. We'll do our best to help you with some food and whatnot, but you can't be a full citizen in this country.
And for thousands and thousands of people, that's an ongoing limbo.
Correct.
And some of those refugees have been there 10, 20 years.
Correct. So in the case of the Bhutanese refugees, the United Nations came in and helped to establish the camp and support the people, and then working with other countries to say, where can these people go? How many people, Bhutanese refugees, will you allow to resettle in your country? The United States is one of the major players in this, and so has taken on tens of thousands of Bhutanese refugees, and a major area of resettlement has become West Michigan. So that's been...
And West Michigan has really been very generous in
Yes.
taking on, through Samaritas and
Yes.
Bethany Christian Services, resettling hundreds of people every year
Yes.
in West Michigan. Leila, I want to go back and ask you, how long did your family stay did you stay in a refugee camp? Or
I did.
Okay,
yes.
for how many years?
I was on and off because I used to study in India.
Okay.
My parents were completely in the camp all the time, so they lived there for 17 to 20 years.
Oh my. So how did you finally get to the United States?
Then this 7 countries came to see whether they're allowed to take refugees. I mean, they stepped up to take refugees. So at that time, actually, I was married Indian man, and I had a little girl, but the culture and different other political reason probably, and the dowry system wasn't very good fit for me. So I was looking for the opportunity where I can be safe. That's why I decided that I saw the ad. I was a teacher in the school. So I saw the ad, then I suddenly realized maybe this is my call. Maybe I should go.
Is this an ad from the UN?
It is the ad from somewhere in the newspaper. Probably it's just the local ads at first from Nepal newspaper. And I suddenly see, when I saw that one, so I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity for me and my daughter, because the daughter are always a curse, or it's a burden for the family also. So they don't really prefer daughters, and I had a daughter. That's why I was like very looking for a good opportunity to take my daughter and give all the education she wants, she deserves.
So when did you come to the U.S.?
So when I saw that one, all of a sudden in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm the one. Let's go and fill out the form. So in my family, they were arguing that they don't want to go any third country resettlement because they like to go back to Bhutan. They don't speak English, so they don't like. That's why.
But Bhutan said, no, the door is closed. You cannot come back.
Yeah, they tried a couple of times, and they couldn't be able to get in there. But still, people do not understand that part.
And maybe the older you are, the more difficult it is to say, okay, another new place, because what's familiar is comfortable.
Right. So probably they don't feel very comfortable with the language. That's why then I decided to fill out the form. Then everybody were against me that why you are going? You have to stay here. You have a little bit of education, so you would help us to get through everything. And I said, okay, I cannot stay here because there is no way we can get any future here. So I thought, I never realized or think that United States is this much generous. But I was thinking of United States have more educated people. So they probably would understand a bit of it, bit of my sorrow. They probably would allow my daughter to give education. That's all my thought was at that time. So I stepped up and I filled out the form. I did everything I could to come to United States in 2000. I started from 2007. And I finally came to the United States on 2008, November 12th.
Wow, okay. Regina, I want to ask you, because you are on the advisory board
Yes.
for BAM.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about your involvement.
Sure, and so it's been my pleasure to walk alongside them. They organized the organization, the Bhutanese Association of Michigan, and just needed a little help, guidance around things. So I supported in helping be established as a 501(c) to make sure that paperwork was in line, make some connections with the Michigan Association for Asian and Pacific Islanders Commission through the Michigan Civil Rights Department, and to make some other community connections so that they could really thrive, and they are thriving, and it's such a thrill to be alongside them and watch their success.
Sure. So, Leela, we were talking earlier, and while there are beginning to be more successes, there are still lots of struggles. We're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but can you give our viewers a sense for what are some of the really basic struggles for the refugee community in general, but the Bhutanese in particular?
In general, I can say languages and the communication system and the ways of communicating each other, because especially for the Bhutanese people, they would like to communicate in person, not online. They are not used to online. They never been to school. They never see internet before. They never see computers before. So they are in persons type of communication. So it's so hard to communicate each other. So the basic needs, what I can feel right now is all those basic needs is all, if anybody would help Bhutanese people, it is the best way they can do ESL classes, citizenship class. From ESL, they can go to citizenship classes, so that when they come to the class, they would solve not only language problem, but they would solve all the mail readings, all the applications, all different kind of things they can solve in the classes.
Because all the little everyday things that Americans take for granted, newcomers have no idea about.
Right. And remember, to have been isolated in the camps without things like technology, high levels of education that we have here in the United States, then all of this is completely just not new, but really foreign and different.
And they're coming really behind the eight ball with
Correct.
with this lack. Willing to work hard,
Very.
but
Very.
but have a deficit of
Right.
training in a lot of ways.
So it just takes a little assistance, right? Help them learn the language and then watch them thrive. Orient around some cultural aspects, and then they're on their way.
So we just have half a minute left, but I'd like each of you to tell me your own understanding of what creates belonging.
I feel like I belong to here right now, because I feel like I get a lot of love, a lot of respect, and I get the job I like. I get here people I like. The community is very friendly. There are so many different organizations come together to work together. And when I first saw Ms. Regina, I felt like, oh, she's the one belong to us, because she is totally make us feel like she is our family member. So we started from her. And when I start seeing online the website and some interview from Feel Like You Belong, then I started following that website all the time, every day. I read it, and I was like, oh my goodness, there are so many people like me. There are so many refugees like me. Then I'm totally from Grand Rapids, and I am from here, so I would like to be here. It's very loving place.
Fantastic.
And feel like I belong from here.
Fantastic. Regina, last word.
Just when you can just be and don't have to explain. You know, I'm just here. Not, no, I'm not from here, I'm from somewhere else. I think that's when you feel like you really belong.
Fantastic. I want to thank you both so much for stopping by and sharing your stories with us. It's
Our
been a real pleasure.
My
Thank
pleasure,
you so
yes.
much.
Awesome.
We moved to Baltimore, Maryland after my mother won the diversity visa lottery. It was a lottery in the late 90s that was going on where foreigners from other countries could apply to live in the U.S. and eventually become U.S. citizens.